There is a system to my madness. There really is. And basically, whenever you identify, when you have a problem inside you and you feel it, I use a protocol all the time. That means, like if you come to see me and you sit in the chair and I say, well, how bad does this bother you? 0 to 10. 10's really strong. That's called a SUD unit, subjective units of distress. Basically, it's how strong the emotions are. So here it is, a SUD unit, subjective units of distress, 0 to 10. Now this is what we want as a 0. So let's just do a little test. I'll have you follow me along. Think about something. Think about something that stresses you. Just think about something. Something may happen this week, yesterday or today. Now as you think about it, just notice what you're doing in your mind. You're thinking. And of course, as you think, you're probably seeing a picture. Isn't that true? You may be saying something to yourself, or you're just recalling something. Notice in your mind from 0, I don't feel it, 10, it's really strong. Feel that emotion there. You got it? From 0 to 10, if you're 5 or higher, just raise your hand. The stressor, whatever it is you're thinking, 5 or higher. Okay? Now, if it isn't higher than a 5, in your mind, go back and see what you're doing. If you're looking at you in your memory, you're disassociating. So stand there and go back and put yourself right there looking at whoever it is, and it will make it stronger naturally. So just feel the stress with it. All right? Now that's a SUD unit. Give it a number. From 0 to 10, notice how the number is. You got it? That's a SUD unit. Okay? And so what I do is in order to get 0, I will do this basic protocol, which I call a TOTE. T-O-T-E. So that means when you think about it, that's a test. So you thought about it, let's say it's a test, and it's a 10. And then we operate. Now operate is you can tap, and there's lots of other ways to change, okay? So we're going to operate. All right? And then since we operate, we tap one time, and we go back and test it again. So if it was a 10, and we tap, and it goes down to 0, then we exit. So let's do this. So go back to whatever it was that you were stressing about. Think about it. Look at the like you're there. Feel whatever it is. Notice the stress level. You got it? All right. Now what we're going to do, everybody take 2 fingers, tap right between your eyes, say, I release and let it go. Beside your eye, it's safe to let it go. Under the eye, let it go. Collarbone, let it go. Grab your wrist, let it go. Take a deep breath. Blow it out and say peace. All right. Now, since we tested, it was a number, and we operated, which we tapped, go back and check the stress level on it now. How strong is it? It's lessened, isn't that true? Let's say, for example, we did 1 tap. Boom. It went from a 10 to a 0. All right? So here it is. You thought about it. It's a 10. We tapped 1 time, operate, and we tested again. And it went to a 0. That's what we're looking for. And since it is 0, we exit. But oftentimes, I mean, this is what you call a perfect model. Just perfect. 1 time, whammy, boom, it's all gone. You're ready to rock and roll. But most cases are like this. Test, operate, test, operate, test, operate, test, operate, test, operate, test, operate, test, exit. All right, so we went from a 10 to an 8 to a 7 to a 6, 5, 4, 0, exit. All right, so here it is. This is what we did. So now, a while ago, you went to a stressor. It was a 10. All right, go back to what's left. Whatever it was you were thinking, feel what's left. Got it? All right, tap between your eyes. Let it go. Side your eye, it's safe to let it go. Under the eye, it's okay to let it go. Collarbone, the smart ones always let it go. And it's safe to let it go. Grab your wrist, take a deep breath, and peace. All right, check it again. Is it still there? Any stresses at all? Let's say no. If there is, I suggest tapping it completely out, okay? Now, this is something I want to help you understand. Let's say you have a bad memory. Let's say you have a problem that really bothers you. And let's say it's a 10 or 15. And if you tap it, let's say you tap twice. It went from a 15 down to a 7, And you say, yeah, this is good enough. 7's a good level. You know, I'm comfortable with feeling this level of badness. What happens? What happens? One, it stays there, and it may not ever change, or you'll have other experiences that are very similar. You know what your mind says? Hey, I got a 7 level over here, so we can bump it up a little bit. And then you can create another problem with this 7 level. Now, what happens if you have this 10 level and you tap it all the way to 0? Would that be a good idea? What happens if you get rid of the stressor? Does it make you stupid? I mean, seriously, some people say, well, you know, I don't want to get rid of this bad feeling. I may need to feel bad some other time in the future. I mean, who will I be if I don't feel bad? Well, I said, well, definitely you'd be happier. But see, the problem is people have fallen in love with their pain. I mean, you buy a name tag. I am fibromyalgic. I am manic depressive. I am a loser. I am always fat. I am whatever. Guys, you're not that. But the deal is we've been taught and trained to believe this. So SUD unit, 0 to 10, this is the best thing about this tapping process. The more you use it, the better and faster it works. I promise you that. It's a skill. See, the other skills that you've learned from your parents, the skills that you learn from your family, only wreaks havoc in your future. Because, see, in the past, you've ignored it, you ate it, you smoked it, you drank it, you ignored whatever you did, and the problem is it's still inside you. If it's inside you, it doesn't matter how deep of the ocean you swim to, no matter how high you fly, no matter how fast you run, guess where it goes? With you. But if you own it, feel it, and tap it and release it, you become free. And the interesting thing about the freedom is you have more choices. Before, you only had one choice. Feel miserable. Eat licorice. Eat chocolate. Eat ice cream. Watch TV. So now we're going to give you many choices. And that's what you really want, is freedom. And this is what you're really going to get when you take control. Does that sound pretty good? Now, what I do suggest when you start tapping on, say you have this memory that's always bothered you, you tap it all the way down to 0, I suggest taking the memory and make it the way you like it. Say, for example, let's say your dad said something that hurt your feelings. And anytime you went to that memory, you feel bad. So we tap all the emotions out of it, and now you can see your dad, and this time your dad is saying something really nice. He says, whatever, the opposite of what he used to say. But Dad would never say that. I said, Dad is not saying the other thing either. You are. You're the one playing the memory. Do you hear me? So that's really interesting. When you go to your memories and you're playing the memory, who is doing it to you? That's a good question, isn't it? Who is? So when you get done of tapping always down to 0, make it positive. Okay? All right. This is a true story. Let's see. So I'm gonna make up another real story. About 14, 15 years old, my parents moved out to in between Binger and Hinton, Oklahoma. And I'm the oldest of 6 of us, and so we would run the countryside. We'd run the countryside, and we would just find caves, old houses. I mean, we'd walk through the woods, and we would find lakes. We'd find all kinds of cool things, my brothers and I, sister. And, well, one sister, 5 brothers. Wouldn't you like to be her? So here it is. One day we found this dog. And it was an old sheepdog. It wasn't an old sheepdog. It was a sheepdog, the white and the black one, with the long hair. And now this sheepdog wouldn't let us get close to him at all. As a matter of fact, we get close to it, it'd scamper off. Apparently it had been abused or whatever. And so one day, and I would try it, and I'd feed it, and I'd try to get it close, and it would never get close. But one day it got all caught up in this briar bush thing, this wire. It was all tangled up, and it couldn't hardly move. So I went over, and I unwired him. I got all this stuff off of him, and all of a sudden, this dog was my dog. He would hang with me. He would go places with me. He'd play with me. And so one day we lived on top of this hill, and the closest neighbor was a mile away, both sides. And I see the dust from the road, and here it is, my dad and his brothers are bringing some pigs. And we had this old little barn thing out in the back, and there was electricity out there, and so he put these little piglets out there. And I remember for birthday, I've got a radio, and I would set up and sing to the pigs, Delta Dawn, what that flower you have on. So that was really a good time now this is a true story. And so one day, there was some neighborhood dogs, some wild dogs, and I hear some shots outside the window. So I go out, and my dad has a gun, and he's shooting every dog. Boom, 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 and my dog too. Now here's something interesting. That did happen, and it was true. But if I go back to that memory, and I play the memory, here it is, my dad with a gun, and my dog there. All right, when I remember this memory, who is it shooting the dog? Who's playing with the memory? I am playing this memory, aren't I? Who is supplying all the emotions in the memory? I am. Who is doing this to Robert? Do you hear me? Even though it was true at one time, it's not true anymore. And I could use this memory to torment me if I wanted to, if I hadn't tapped on it. There was still a little bit of something there. Could you tell? Yeah. I hadn't tapped it all out. But this was true. Now here's something interesting. If you leave bad memories inside you, you will operate from bad memories. Do you hear me? So you always have to make peace with every person in your memory. And when you can make peace with that person inside your memory, who is really benefiting from it? My father's dead and gone. But I'm the one who's carrying this torch against who? Myself. Does that make sense? That's a true story, guys. You operate from those and you use those against yourself. Now, you just think about it. We said, hey, let's tap on some of your cookies. Let's tap on some of this other stuff. And you say, oh no, don't take away my crutch. Don't take away my crutch. Now here it is, I was talking to this lady, she's talking about her mother. She said, my mother just hates herself. She just hates herself because she's so fat. And yet, you can't pull her away from the table. I say, hey Mom, let's tap on your food. Oh, don't touch my food. Do you see the weirdness about this whole thing? You want to lose weight, but you don't want to let go. And you know why you don't want to let go? It's because somewhere inside you, you have emotional references. Guys, how many diets will it take to fix that reference? How many diets will it take to fix those emotional references? It doesn't matter how many diets you go on. All right, let's say, for example, you have an emotional attachment to this food, and that food is supplying something for you, isn't it? It's creating or stirring up a love you already have based on an emotional reference in your past. And so here it is, you're on a diet and you can't have it anymore. What happens then? You want it more because why? Inside you, you have this emotional attachment, this emotional something, but really isn't in the ingredients. And the only way that you're going to really gain control is to identify it, set it right there in front of you, and tap out your emotions that you have with it, because other people says, I can't believe you like that nasty stuff. But you have something there. Does that make sense? So this is how you do it. You've got to find that food, whichever it is, the one you don't want to do. And if you do the one you don't want to do, guess what happens? You truly become free. That doesn't mean you can't eat it. You can eat it. But you've already taken the negative charge, that stuff that really isn't in it. Does that make it pretty easy? Now, guys, don't think you're going to get it this trip. Do you hear me? Don't think you're going to get it all in one seminar. If you give me this seminar once, and you've already tried it, and as a matter of fact, if you don't take it home with you, if you don't use it, you don't practice it, you don't apply it, you will get exactly what you put in it. And it's not me, it's you. I want to put you in the driver's seat of your life. And some of you, it's going to take a while. Linda's been coming for 1.5 years and she hadn't got it yet. just kidding, Linda. But this is